Hello everyone and welcome to this episode of Igbopedia. I am your host, Chisom, and my guest today is Amarachi Attamah, a performance poet, broadcaster, author and promoter of the Igbo culture. Amarachi has written multiple books and runs a children's language theatre. Most recently, she performed at the National Theatre in London in an adaptation of Three Sisters, a heart-wrenching story about the Biafran Civil War. Amarachi has a master's in mass communication from the University of Nigeria. She is also the executive director of Diorama Concept, an organization promoting awareness of the Igbo language and culture. I'm so excited to welcome nwanyi Igbo to the podcast today. Amarachi, welcome to my show.
Thank you, Chisom. I'm so glad to be here.
It's so good to have you here, and I just love your enthusiasm for the Igbo language, and I think we'll have a great conversation today.
Thank you so much. I look forward to it too.
So let's talk about Diorama Concept. How did it start, and what is your role in that organization?
Okay, first of all, I have an organization, an NGO, for the promotion of Igbo language and culture, which is the Oja Cultural Development Initiative. Of course, that is for the social services. That is a non-governmental, non-profit making NGO. And all we do is promotion of Igbo language and organize our annual festival, which is the Oja Cultural Festival. And it is the first festival for young people. So we start from January to go to schools, creating awareness and getting volunteer teachers who are willing to key into it and train these children. And then towards the end of the year, say October, November, we come for the festival. So we have schools coming from different places. And sometimes the festival participation is up to 2,000 students. So as time went on, I realized that a lot of my own personal business aspect is now getting mixed up with the NGO, which is my performance as a performance artist, which of course I get paid to perform. And my other aspect of, because I'm taken and I'm consumed by the whole Igbo language, Igbo art, Igbo entrepreneurship, Igbo creative, whatever, everything Igbo. So it started becoming a kind of mixed up. So soon enough, I had a kind of local kitchen where I prepared the very indigenous delicacy, and people order, I sent them. And then I started making t-shirts where you promote Igbo proverbs on it. So I have my t-shirts and other businesses. I have my creative team that we go to perform, and of course we are paid to do that. So those are my business aspects, which started getting mixed up with the NGO. And so someone calls you for a job and the person say, oh, it's just for the promotion of Igbo language, They forget that you also need even sponsorship, in as much as the NGO had not even getting the sponsorship, but we kept doing what we are doing. And that was when I thought of registering one Diorama Concept, which is the business. It envelopes my business angle, while the Oja Cultural Development Initiative is there for the NGO, the promotion of Igbo language, the festival, and every other activities we've been doing to promote the Igbo language, including the Igbo Teachers Conference, including going from schools to schools, creating the awareness, which we call the school tour, including the nwanyi Igbo, the reading and writing workshop for Igbo language, including a lot of mentorship of younger people, younger poets, younger performers, and younger voices in terms of promotion of Igbo language. So there is a whole lot the NGO is already doing. But then I have to live a life also. And that life means that I create services that people have to pay for. And that is what Diorama Concept represents. So anything that you pay me for, any business angle that comes to me, is under the Diorama Concept, while we continue our social services with the Oja Cultural Development Initiative. So that was how we started.
Okay, wow. That's incredible, because there's a lot going on, from the performance, but also to food, the t-shirts you mentioned that you make, and then Igbo proverbs on the t-shirts. So it's actually like you cover a broad spectrum. Just touching on the food part, you mentioned local delicacies. Can you name a few of your favorites for our listeners?
So, because I am from Nsukka, and we have some very, very rich delicacy, which when I came over to Enugu and traveled to other parts of Igbo land, I noticed that it's not really there. And then gradually in Enugu, you find, pit places where they sell it, but this delicacy is so rich, which we call the echicha. In Enugu town here, people call it achicha, but we in the Nsukka call it echicha. And just like to some communities, they have abacha. To some communities, it's ofe onubu. To some communities, it's ofe ako. For us, the Nsukka people, it is the echicha, which we make with the dried cocoyam and the pigeon pea, which is abubo, And then you can, garnish it and sprinkle some chanwo on it, which is a scent leaf that are very rich. So I was thinking, how do I promote some of these very, very rich things we have as Igbo people? Because I have been preaching about eating your local delicacies, eating right, and I have been preaching about going to the market, to those local markets to buy vegetables to eat, instead of always trying to adopt what you see from the television or what you feel they do in other countries. You are in Nigeria, instead of going to the market to buy, you go to places like ShopRite to go and show off. And you eat a whole lot of junk just to show up. So what the poor people actually eat abroad is what the rich people, are proud eating here. And what the rich eat abroad is what the poor people are eating here. Because you have to be very rich to afford organic food abroad and eat only organic food. But when you come here, anybody who just buys a car feels that, I am too big to eat organic food. And the next thing the person goes about trying to show off with eating rubbish. So because I have been preaching of that, I had to start going back to those very, very, because these local delicacies, some of them are very difficult to prepare. Some of them take hours. And that was how I started making the echicha. And then we have the one we call, now they call it ayaraya. But if you go to my own community, we call it a guarajine kati. We have iyariyari, right? The iyariyari is the ayarayoka. And then the one they call ayarayaji is our egwalajine, because even the name is so indigenous. So I came to Enugu and I started making that echicha, and I called it echicha. I didn't go to call it African whatever, because our indigenous name, we are always tempted to give it English names, right? And then you see us trying to call abacha African salad. I don't get it. So why not promote it with the name that it is known with? So that was what I started doing, to promote that food the way it is prepared. And then maybe you can garnish it the way you like, but make it look also so posh, as we say, so that people can eat it from anywhere and people can actually admire it. And as soon as I started, you see people who have forgotten, people saying, oh my God, I've not taken this for the past 20 years. People actually want to have this, but why do we pretend? Hopefully, in the nearest future, I have a bigger platform where you can find Ofachi, Ofe, whatever, any part of Igbo land, the Igbo indigenous food. But for now, I started with just few of the Nsukka delicacies.
You have this passion, and a passion especially for authenticity of the Igbo culture. But where did this start? Was this from a child, or did you suddenly, in your teen years, decide to start this thing?
No, the whole journey of Igbo language, I would say, really started 2014. It's not too long ago, but I would say it's long ago too. So that's basically 6 years ago. Having grown up in the north and finding out that every northern child speak their language, and then returning back to Igbo land, and I think it is strange to find a northern child who doesn't really speak their language. It's strange for me. Because in the places I grew up, I really never saw, born in Bauchi, moved to Benue, and then to Abuja, and I really never saw a northern child who was not able to speak their language, at least the basic Hausa language. And then they learn the Arabic, which is what they teach them first, even before the education that, the modern education or whatever we call it. So soon enough, I joined the Association of Nigerian Authors. That was 2007. And not long enough, there was this outcry of UNESCO, proscribing Igbo language as an endangered language, and we soon go into extinct if nothing has been done. And I was concerned. But funny enough, I spoke Igbo language. I spoke in my own dialect. That was what we were speaking. And so getting to know that there was this central Igbo, there is this, Igbo is Ube, Igbo this and that. I didn't really study Igbo language in the junior secondary. I was rather doing Hausa. And then, seeing that soon enough, there was this, people were just complaining, but people were not doing nothing. The same people complaining, we are speaking only English to their children. And you even see parents who didn't even go to school forcing themselves to speak some very terrible English to their children because they just want to, to feel among. I don't know the theory, but then when I started asking questions, there was this very ridiculous theory of if the child learn the Igbo language first, or if the child speak the Igbo language, the child wouldn't be able to speak the English language. I was like, what? Who said that? I don't understand. From the day I was born, I'm sure my parents were speaking my dialect to me, and we spoke our dialect in the house. We never knew any other thing in the house aside the dialect. And then we do the English thing in the school. I speak Pidgin English, which the areas I grew up with, it was mostly Pidgin English. And it didn't still prevent me to speak the school English, right? I speak Hausa. So how is it possible that if I speak my language, I wouldn't be able to speak or learn the English language? Who said that? Because I know people who speak French, German, English, Igbo, whatever, and they are still cool. So I wrote my first novella, Tomorrow's Tweet, in 2007. So I went to present it to this writer, Professor Amezi Okoro, and he was like, why not translate it in Igbo language? I was like, what? Igbo what? Because then writing Igbo was so difficult for me. I speak, yes, in my dialect, but then writing the school Igbo, the central Igbo, was very difficult because I wasn't studying it in junior secondary. And I got an F, an E. Yeah, an E in my WAEC. Only the Igbo language is what I failed. So that was very funny. And the whole thing started playing back in my head. And I was like, maybe give it a try. But I tell you, this thing is so difficult. So I started sleepless night. I was trying to write just one article. And the article was addressing the need to speak the Igbo language to your children. Because it's so ridiculous that children in Igbo land do not speak Igbo language. I don't get it. And I started writing the article and rewriting and cancelling and rewriting again. And I was in church and I joined the lay readers and they were putting me to read Igbo. Auntie Carol was always forcing me, read Igbo, try and do it. So I continued. I now found out an Igbo teacher who was also attending the same church, and I was going to meet him, say, what is this? And then I was just obsessed with the whole thing. And before long, I wrote the article, and then one magazine in US, they published it, and then they read it on radio, and they tagged me in the link. I said, what? Yeah, really? And I'm saying, oh my goodness, my Igbo language is not taking me. Then before you know it, I started. And the first time I wrote a poem, and I was invited to perform a part of my Igbo short story, a novella, to Akụkọ Ifo Nne M Ochie Kọrọ M. So I did it, and it was wow. So before you know it, I write and I try to. People don't like poetry, and I was in the literary association, and even when you write English, most people find it difficult, except you are reading to poets. So I was looking for how do I perform this so that people would appreciate it, even though it might be difficult. And then I performed the first time. I don't know how I started performing, but I just performed. And then, I got this wow. And then I did it again and again and again. And this is where we are today. I will tell you, it's fun. It's the most fulfilling thing I'm doing as a human being. It's beautiful. It's just you keep doing it and you keep learning, and you have the opportunity to teach others. You have the opportunity to join your strong voice in conversations about self-identity, about promoting your cultural heritage and all that. It's, before you know it, people are recommending you for things. When you ask about who is the person that, I say, oh, just talk to Amarachi. So it gradually became me. It became me. I am my art. My art, yes, chose me. And I just saw, that's all I do now. And it's the most fulfilling thing for me. And I don't regret it at all.
That's excellent. I mean, it's partly how this Igbopedia podcast started. And it's just, you learn so much from doing these things, and the passion for the language, and to try and continue that, make sure the next generation, because it's just such, Igbo is so rich. The proverbs, the language, the food, everything you said is just, it really resonates with me. Igbo is spoken by more than 20 million people. There are over 20 dialects. It's a tonal language, and it's also recognized as a minority language in Equatorial Guinea. So those are a few fun facts. Is there anything else that people might not know about Igbo, or about the culture, about the language, that you want to raise now?
I think that is it basically. Yes, people say the Igbo language is very difficult to. Yeah, I would agree with that partly because you look at, for instance, the Yoruba alphabet, and I think it's about 26, and you look at the Hausa, it's about 21, and you look at Igbo, it's 36, because we have the going in our own language. But because it is a tonal language, you spell things as you speak them, and it makes it easier. So, in as much as during colonization or whatever, I don't know how they came about some of the spellings we are seeing today, there was a terrible, terrible misspelling of our language, a lot of things. So, you find Oka to be A-W-K-A instead of O-K-A. So, I don't, because of this, people are a little bit confused. So, Enugu, which is to end with GW, will now be Enugu. I don't know what Enugu means because it doesn't have any meaning in the Igbo language. But it is Enugu, so that on the hill, even though we've known these things today, you find out that we find it difficult correcting them because, let's just continue with the mistake anyway. So we don't like to go back and correct some of this colonization and wahala, So if you really want to learn the Igbo language, because it is tonal, it helps. You write as you speak, as you pronounce. So if you can do that, you find out that even if you do not understand the language, you know that Amarachi. Once you know the alphabet, which is the very basic. In fact, if you don't write it somewhere and be looking at it, so that whatever you want to spell, you spell it according to how, just learn the pronunciation and you spell it according. That was how I was doing when I was trying to learn the Igbo. Even my dialect, which is the Nsukka, is very deep. So when I want to write the Nsukka dialect, sometimes you see me spelling or Biamanek. You see me saying the word like 20 times so that I will know the exact pronunciation in order to help me to write it. So Igbo language, yes, we say it's spoken by 20 million, 20 billion. But I keep saying, if you do not pass your language to the younger speakers, people say, there is nothing. UNESCO's prediction is nothing. It's never going to happen. Yes, we agree because people like us, for me, I say, in my own household, in my own area, it wouldn't die. But the truth is, if you do not make effort to start teaching the younger speakers, it is going somewhere. The language is hitting its head somewhere. And then for the adults who are not speaking, it's not magic science. People complain, I didn't learn it when I was young, and so I can't learn it when I grow up. It's not true. Because you see the same Igbo people travel to Germany, and in 6 months they are speaking German. You see them travel to speak Portuguese, French, and different languages just because they travel to that country. And because they went to the money-making mentality, they are forced, or they unconsciously learn the language, right? They bring out their time to learn a new language. So why can't you do the same for your own language if indeed you call it something? If you did, it's important to you. It's not a rocket science. It's the same way you go to learn German. It's the same way you go to Lagos and you start speaking Yoruba. It's the same way you go to France and before you know it, you're speaking French. You can as well do the same for your language and learn it. Learn it. It's a language. You can learn it because if you speak 20 languages and you do not speak yours, I don't take you serious. I don't know, but if you speak all the languages in the world and you don't speak, that's your own. I don't know. How are you proud even saying that? So I encourage people. Yes, Igbo language is tonal. It is learnable. There are many ways, many things, many articles, many materials now online. Igbopedia now is there. People are doing things. So I appreciate them by learning this language. That is the only way you keep them doing what they are doing. If you do not do nothing and you don't learn and people are just suffering, at some time you find out that people get discouraged. People get like, why do I suffer myself? Why am I doing this? People are not even appreciating it. So yes, it is tonal and it is spoken by a whole lot of people. And Ndi Igbo are everywhere in the world. In fact, I don't know whether, I'm sure if you go to some places where we have only sun and moon dialoguing, you'll find Ndi Igbo there. So Ndi Igbo are everywhere. So if we mean business, I love my people because I know that whatever they set their mind to do, they do it. So if we mean business, I tell you, Asusu Igbo will be something that there is nothing like a child who not speak Asusu Igbo. It wouldn't be existing. So because we mean business, so to turn around and correct the whole mistake. So that's Igbo language for you.
You're right. The Igbo language, it forms a big part of the identity of us as Igbo people. Another key part of the formation of our identity is, or was, the Nigerian-Biafran War. Let's talk about your recent performance in Three Sisters. It's an enlightening and heartbreaking tale about love and longing in 1960s Nigeria, and you play the role of the chant poet. Tell us a bit more about your role in the play and how this came about.
Okay, so like I said, I am obsessed with anything Igbo, with our story, with not just the language, our story, our identity, our dressing, and anything that's just the show how rich these people called the Igbo people are, because we are a people we blessed with a lot of richness and depth and art and craft and mind to find solution where there is no solution. Where people are running away, you go. There is this ad I did recently, and I said, we know the language of water, and we weave baskets with wind. We are a people who come to the place where there is desert and trees will start growing there. If indeed we know this, and we have a history, a major history, which is the Biafran War. It is a story that you cannot wipe away from the Igbo history as it stands today. Because this is a war that came and took more than 3 million of our people. And I think it is unjust to even ever forget it. You can't forget it. There is nothing like forgetting it. So you tell this story. It should be turned into folk laws and folk songs and music and poetry and art and everything, so that it will be a tale that generations to come will know about. So when I started knowing about the Biafra War and getting obsessed and reading and buying loads of Biafran books and like, oh my goodness, this happened. And I love old people. I love old people. I like to go close to them to ask questions. And soon enough, I started going to them. I saw a need to do a documentary, which is the Biafra. I did a documentary, a poetic documentary, which is Biafra. It's there on YouTube. You can find Biafra. And I went to the UK on an invitation to perform in the Igbo conference. And Biafra came up again in my speech. And I went again the second time last year in June to perform in the Igbo festival and all that. And I decided to do an evening of poetry, which I did in a small hall at Waterloo. And after doing that, that was where I had invited someone who invited his sister, and then she came with some directors from the National Theatre. And that was where I met my director, Nadia Falls, and she watched me perform, and she approached me and told me about Three Sisters. They were doing a kind of sampling week that week, and then they invited me to join them. I did. And she was very enchanted, which is what I do with my poetry, is to enchant people and provoke thoughts. So she was very enchanted with the performance and the voice, and to the extent that it brought tears to her eyes. And she didn't even understand what I was saying. And when I was going that week, she now found out that I had done something on Biafra, and that was when I did a kind of private screening of Biafra for them. And then the journey started. And then this story is about Biafra also, and it seems you've done so much about Biafra. And I said, yes, I've done so much about Biafra. So I was literally saying this and that and, just imputing things. And my dear, I came back to Nigeria, and after months, I was invited, okay, would you be able to come and join this family? And then that was how I came back to join the Three Sisters family. And I tell you, I met some amazing people, which we all did the play together to tell this story of the Biafran War and the longing and the love and the loss and the pain and the whole things, the politics, the dangerous politics that was, playing out and brought about all this in the first place. And so that was how we did Three Sisters. I was in the UK from November to March, first week of March when I came back. And I think we did a total of 52 episodes of the Three Sisters. And this story holds, so much about us as a people. And I was so glad when I saw the effort that was put in by the National Theatres to make sure that even the stage, the costume, the little details were there. And they brought grass on stage. They made sure that the Igbo house is the Igbo house. So you see things that depicted, we are talking about the Igbo people, and the language, the songs, and then my poetry, of course. So they did so much so that even if some of the cast are not Igbo people, even if some of the cast are Yoruba House, you see everybody is working to tell this story. And the British were not spared also. They were told where they played their own role in the play, and they were watching it. So it's just that thing. It's the same thing, telling your story the way it is in the organic form. And Three Sisters did that for me, and I keep saying kudos to Inwa Elams who did that adaptation, because of course he's not Igbo, but Inwa put in so much